morning. My name is Bay Gayard, and my pronouns are they, them. One day, late in November, I got a call from my estranged mother. We haven't spoken on the phone in years and in person in a decade, not since my first wedding. She said, "Nana is dying." I said, "I'll come at once." And I did. I flew out to Reno and said goodbye to my grandmother. And on the last day of my trip, I talked to my mother about why we don't talk anymore. She said she still loved me. I said I still loved her. But we agreed we can't be together. And some part of me still says she doesn't love me the way I love her. So what is love? The Greeks named several different kinds of love. Among them are eros, or sexual passion, philautia, or love of the self, storge, familial love, and philia, deep friendship. I think those get talked about a lot, though we could always use a refresher on self-love. But what I want to talk about today is agape, love for everyone, love for your fellow person solely based on them being a person. I'm talking about the kind of love Jesus called us to. You have heard it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. Our faith calls us to put love at the center of all we do, to answer the call of love. So what is agape? What is love? What are we called to feel for our fellow human beings, maybe even for the entire interdependent web of life? It wouldn't be a sermon on love without some bell hooks, so let me quote from her book, All About Love. In it, Bell writes, "I spent years searching for a meaningful definition of the word love and was deeply relieved when I found one in psychiatrist M. Scott Peck's classic self-help book, The Road Less Traveled, first published in 1978. Echoing the work of Erich Fromm, he defines love as the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. Of course, that just shifts the question from what is love to what is spirituality, another huge topic to tackle. Bell describes it as such. He is referring to that dimension of our core reality where mind, body, and spirit are one. An individual does not need to be a believer in a religion to embrace the idea that there is an animating principle in the self, a life force, some of us call it soul, that when nurtured enhances our capacity to be more fully self-actualized and able to engage in communion with the world around us. Now, in case you're unaware, self-actualization is the psychological drive to realize one's full potential and become everything one is capable of becoming. To love someone, according to Bell Hooks, is to be willing to put yourself out there, to reach out and help someone become their best self. Bell, quoting Peck, continues, "Love is as love does. Love is an act of will, namely both an intention and an action. Will also employs choice. We do not have to love. We choose to love." Jesus calls us to love our enemies. "If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you?" asks Luke. Just think about that for a moment. Love your enemies. Not just people you haven't met. People who voted for Donald Trump. People who want you or your family dead or removed from the country. People who would hurt you, people who would hurt your loved ones, people who would tear down your faith and replace it with something you cannot abide. Love them. How? How can you feel love for someone you also feel hatred for? How can you choose to nurture that which would destroy you? In his book, You Contamination, Paul and Billy Hord suggest the answer is to keep to the spirit of love. Loving our enemies means recognizing that when we continue to keep them as enemies, we are playing the same game they are and working against the kingdom of God. True emancipation lies in the hope of transformation for enemies. It provides us an opening for the adversary to join the struggle and absolutely refuses to place the adversary in the position of an enemy. In other words, when you love your enemies, a funny thing happens. You stop having enemies. You stop seeing the world in the grand struggle of us and them. Instead, you have people. Some are adversarial, and you will struggle against them, but never so as to ostracize, marginalize, or oppress them. Struggle is real, pain is real, but joy is also real. The command to love our enemies helps undermine the very system that manufactures enemies. When you look at why people turn to fascism, it's always because of a lack within themselves. A lack of safety, a lack of self-love, a lack of security and confidence. It is my firm belief that nobody is born hating someone, nor are they born thinking they're better or worse than anyone else. They say that hurt people hurt people. To me, that means that the people who do the most harm in society are also deeply wounded children underneath, that they are desperate to love and be loved. How can you help but love a wounded child? I get a lot of inspiration from music. In her best-selling single, Beautiful Stranger, Madonna wrote, "To know you is to love you." I think she was onto something there. The more I know someone, the easier it is to love them. But let's also examine the inverse. Can you love someone you don't know? My mother says she loves me. I don't doubt she feels some affection towards me. She definitely feels all the gooey familial feelings you're supposed to think about, or you're supposed to feel when you think about your kid. But I don't think she loves me. She doesn't know me as a person, as a human being. She believes that I am a lot of things that I am not, such as misguided, under sway of Satan, incorrect about my own lived experiences. She hasn't asked me about my life in years. She thinks she knows me, and in so thinking, she declines to actually get to know me. And I don't think you can love someone you don't know. You can build up a mental image of them in your head, and you can love or hate that mental image. But unless your mental image corresponds with their lived reality, you don't love or hate them, just an idea in your head. You don't really know what's best for them because you don't know who they are. I've never met Donald J. Trump. I don't know the man. I don't know what makes him tick. I don't know how he thinks. I don't know how he feels about himself, about others, about our society. And it's really easy to hate him. He's trying to destroy me and my family and my faith, and everything I hold dear. But to love him, I would need to go deeper into his psyche. I would have to know to some degree what it's like to be Donald J. Trump. And it's my failing that I'm unwilling to do that. Madonna wrote, "To know you is to love you." But I believe the opposite is also true. To love you is to know you. To let go of my preconceived notions of who you are and what you believe, and instead listen intently, deeply, with an open heart and mind to who you really are. And to do that, you have to set aside your ego. You have to be willing to be wrong, to have been wrong about them. Because we all do it, don't we? We all make snap judgments. We all evaluate people based on first impressions. We all think we know each other. And to really know someone, you have to let down that guard, that constant alienation of the other, and be vulnerable. Because you might learn things that hurt you. You might learn things that change you. You might learn that you were wrong on a fundamental level. Unless you're willing to do that, to let the experience change you, then you're not really going to be able to absorb who the other person is, what their lived experience is like. Bell Hooks wrote, "To know love, we have to tell the truth to ourselves and others. Creating a false self to mask fears and insecurities has become so common that many of us forget who we are and what we feel underneath the pretense. Breaking through this detail is always the first step in uncovering our longing to be honest and clear. Not only do we need to break through the masks that we put up and shield ourselves from each other, but we need to be willing to look beyond the masks that others present in order to hide to us. 1 Samuel 16:7b states, "The Lord does not look at the things that people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." Jesus calls for us to see each other the way God sees us, as complex individuals, not stereotypes, and essentially unyieldingly human, not monsters, not the other, but people just like us. There's a moment in a piece of Animorphs fan fiction And don't worry if you don't understand what that is, it's irrelevant. Where the main characters get a chance to look into each other's brains and see what kind of person each other are under all the communication errors and false pretenses. The viewpoint character for the scene, Rachel, describes the experience thus. I found it incredibly easy to see myself in Garrett and to see Garrett in me, to understand what it was like to be him, why he did the things he did, to imagine myself doing the same in his place. He was no more alien than Jake or Marco had been. In fact, all of them had been normal? No, not normal. Fascinating. Brilliant, riveting, beautiful. I didn't want to admit it because of what it implied about before, about the past, about my whole life up until an hour and a half ago. That I'd basically been writing off the people around me, even the ones I liked, even the ones I trusted. That I'd been summing them up, flattening them out, storing them in my mind as cartoon characters rather than as full, three-dimensional people. I could feel myself shifting into a new sort of reality where other people actually existed as players instead of background characters. People whose incomprehensible behavior wasn't the product of broken or mysterious thinking processes, but of brains that were only a little bit different from mine. I find this moment fascinating because I understand it all too well. Rachel is hard on herself, but I think we all do it to some degree. We see each other as NPCs, as bit parts, as minor players in our own stories, rather than the protagonists of their stories. And we can't love someone truly if we see them that way. My mother is affectionate toward me frequently, but never does she extend herself to nurture my spiritual growth. She seems almost entirely uninterested in learning any single fact about me that doesn't fit her preconceived notion of who I am. Her brilliant, intellectual daughter. The one with so much promise, and the one who threw it all away for the temptations of sin. I promised myself as a child that when I grew up I'd be nothing like her, and so I try my best to know people before I judge them. I seek the best in people so I can understand what they need to be self-actualized, to live their best life, and then I put forth the will to support them in that. Despite her abuse towards me when I was a child, I do love my mother. I wish her nothing but peace and spiritual growth. I wish for her to grow beyond the confines of her current rigid, limiting faith, to grow into a place where she can love her enemies as well. There is nothing I, as her child, can do to bring this about, but I deeply, truly desire it for her. To me, that's what being a universalist is all about. I don't identify as strongly with the Unitarian part, but the universalist, the idea of universal salvation and the universal goodness of humanity, that resonates really well with me. Obviously, not everyone does good all the time, but on some level, I believe everyone is good, has the potential for great wonder, great joy, great love, and great sorrow, great empathy, and great compassion. That's what it means to be human, to be capable of not just the worst things humanity has to offer, but also the best things. One of my favorite poems is by E. E. Cummings. It is entitled, "Humanity, I Love You." And while it's sarcastic for Cummings, a call to remember that everyone is flawed and capable of great harm, for me it's a sincere statement. I love humanity, even if I can't quite love every human. If I am quick to anger, I am also quick to forgive, because I know what it's like to make mistakes, to be wrong about someone or something. I'm a universalist, not because everyone needs salvation, but because everyone already has the keys to salvation within us. You may have heard the saying that if you're not a liberal at 20, you have no heart, but if you're not a conservative at 40, you have no head. I believe we UUs are at our best when we have Unitarian heads, but Universalist hearts. When we love everyone, even as we use our minds to decipher the difference between good and evil. When we love the wretched, the flawed, the broken, and yes, even the oppressor. If hatred is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die, love is bathing in healing and sharing it to everyone you meet, even if they don't deserve it, even if they're a terrible person. Hurt people, and everyone deserves to be healed, and so everyone deserves to be loved. I could talk about love all day. It's one of my favorite subjects. Call me sometime and I'd be happy to talk more. I love you. May love bless us, each and every one.